I appreciate the opportunity to welcome everyone and to introduce the next speaker. Retirement is everything it promised to be. But I will be around the school and around the campus from time to time. I'll typically be at the capstone events and graduation and things like that. But I want to introduce Bob Boyko and Mark Manis, who are working on this project. You can read their bios in the back of the program and stuff like that, but I want to just introduce them by talking about how important and truly groundbreaking and revolutionary what they're doing is. And you know, we use a lot of hyperbole, and I think I'm noted for that in particular. But I've actually been right more than I've been wrong. You know, I remember 20 years ago, and I was first introduced to something called links and then mosaic, and predicted that would turn the world upside down. It certainly has. Certainly devices and things have done that. But one of the things that's remained really static for centuries is learning and teaching and education. And we are on the precipice of truly revolutionizing learning, changing the locations and the way we do it and the formats and what we know about people. And what Bob has come up with and Mark recognized as important and embraced for Costco, which I think is the one of the greatest corporations on the planet. I'm so pleased that they are one of our strongest partners because they share the values of the information school. But you know, Bob has talked about some elements of gamification and gamifying learning, and that doesn't do this justice. Gamification as a term is somewhat trivial, or maybe it's for motivating or whatever. No. Gamification, I'll give you one particular specific. Do-overs. In K-12 education and corporate, do we allow do-overs? Do we allow you keep learning from mistakes and whatever? No, because logistically it's too hard and we're not organized that way. Well, gamification is do-overs, right? Game over, what do? Do it again. And you do it again until you learn, right? A second thing is that we grade in most of our classes and places by giving everybody an A, everybody's got 100 or a 4.0, and then we take it away, right? And we detract from it, right? And gamification is everybody starts with nothing, 0, and you earn points and you build up, and that constructivist kind of approach is really special. How do you do that with thousands, if not millions of students? Well, these guys are going to tell us in a way. Continuous feedback involving the learner in assessment, isolating knowledge and skills, and focusing on them. And just flipping not just the delivery, but flipping every aspect. So I really truly think that what they have to talk about certainly relates to everything that was discussed this morning, but in every context, because we are about learning organizations, we are about learning in every context, and this truly is something unique and special. So without any further ado, Bob and Mark.
All right, thank you. Mike is not only Dean Emeritus, he's also Chief Marketing Officer. Well, thanks so much. Let's kick off with a short video about the inception of our program. Together and how Learn Together came to be. It is a product of everyone in this room, practically. Certainly the iSchool. So next slide, please. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is a little bit about me. I'm going to skip all the formalities. I do a lot of stuff during my day. I teach, and I do consulting, and I've written, and I do business, and I also do programming. And let me introduce my counterpart here, Mark Mattis from Costco, and he is the reason that Learn Together exists in the way it does. So, Mark, please introduce yourself.
So, just to be crystal clear, what you're going to see over the next few minutes, the brilliance and the innovation and the drive and this vitality, it's not Costco, that's Bob. He's been behind that. He's the brains behind the whole thing. Now, we do have a couple of people on there in another moment. This wouldn't exist at Costco if we didn't have some very high-performing technology leaders. One of them, Troy Ness, has been here on this engagement from the beginning. Without him, we would never have implemented this, and then he was joined later on. We met Ian Matisse, who it turns out started a company that does something similar to this and sold it for profit. So we thought, oh, that's a nice thing to add to this. So between those two, if you guys would just raise your hand or something. They also have a day job where they're managing programs that are in the tens and tens of millions of dollars, so they've done this on their own time. And for that, I have the highest and most sincere regard. So phenomenal. My job in this was to connect smart and able people with each other. But also, I have a problem. And we've got experts in the room right now, today, who are expert skill in empowerment, in human motivation, in emotional intelligence, across the board. If you were to take everything that they could tell us, and if you were to fold it up and put it in our heads and we adjust it, and if you were to take all of that and the experience of all the teachers here, and then you were to ignore it and do just the opposite, you would have a beautiful snapshot of what corporate training looks like today. It's a lot, and that's when things start to get interesting, so he's going to talk a little bit about what we're doing.
Okay, next slide. Okay, you guys have all been to school. How many people have taken a class? Every single one of you know these rules. You know them by heart. That's what class at school has taught us. Teacher talks, students listen. Why are we doing this again today in front of all of you guys? Teachers are talking and you all students are listening. Well, that's the old model. You take notes. I see a lot of you taking notes. You read your textbook, you do your homework, you take tests, write papers, do class presentations. That's school. That's been school for all of us for our entire lives. Next slide, please. Old work. Old work has rules as well. The first rule of old work is you're not in school anymore. Get used to being out of school. Think for a moment about all the assumptions that we all carry about what school is and what work is. What we're doing in the Learn Together project is we're systematically questioning every one of those assumptions and trying to go back to basic principles. As Mike was saying, how do people learn? What can we do to help them do better at work? Why is there a boundary at all between learning and doing your work? Why aren't you learning and doing your work in the same breath? Or at least in the same day? That's what we base this product on. Next, please. Learn Together is new school and new work. No more teachers. You learn from the people who know a little bit better than you do what you're trying to accomplish. No more books. You learn from the work product. Now, Learn Together is for professionals. It's not an academic application, although it has obvious academic implications. So think of yourself in your workplace. And think of who you'd like to learn from. Would you like to learn from some consultant that they fly in from Minnesota for a one-day seminar? Or would you like to learn from the person down the hall from you who really knows what it is you're trying to do and has done exactly what you're trying to do? That's what we're based on. And no more lying between learning work. You learn from the actual work product of the people around you. You teach others what you know. You do the work product that's required of you at work in order to certify that you've learned. It's just sort of obvious. I hate to even say it. Okay, next. Okay, Mark,
I think there's probably enough meaning embedded in that picture to kind of get the point where we're going. I've got a 16-year-old daughter, and so now it's time for us to learn how to drive. And there's a number of ways that we could go through that. One way, which I don't think I'll choose, is I could hand her the keys up in Woodville, and she's never driven before, to my knowledge. I can do things, and we can strap ourselves in. I'd probably pre-deploy the airbags, and I would dial 911, and we would work our way down into Seattle. And at the end of that drive, if we're still intact, we would sit down and we would go over everything that she did well for the past 45 to an hour and a half. We would go over things that she didn't do well. We would go over some of the feedback she got, say, from the police along the way. We would never teach like that. We don't teach like that in our classrooms. But we do it all day, every day in corporate training. And we just knew that there had to be something better. And let me give you a brief insight into the Costco mindset. Whenever you see a market or a product or a service that is very expensive, where the margins are very high, customer satisfaction is very low, you've got an opportunity there. So it looks strange when Costco gets into things like gasoline or women's cosmetics or spices. You know, people have been gouging people on spices for millennia, right? In the corporate training world now, there is one of those situations where we pay an awful lot. We pay anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 to $7,000. People go sit into a classroom in these well-ordered seats, and maybe they come back, maybe they take some sort of certificate test online, but we don't really see value in it. There might be minimal value, there might be some satisfaction value, but there's opportunity there. And so when these ideas pop up, especially looking through a Costco lens, we thought it would be something to invest in.
Next slide, please.
Yeah, I mean, what are we looking for? This is Aristotle. You're not going to get through next philosophy teacher without hearing about Aristotle. We want two things, right, in our lives. We see human an interesting set to understand. We want to figure things out. We want to hear what other people have to say. We want to personally grow. And we want to be happy. And in a room full of people like this, you recognize that those things are intrinsically intertwined. If we want to invest in our people, you know, we want them to stick around. It's not enough to give them a living wage. It's not enough to give them health care. You've got to give them something more. And the only way, in terms of sustainable organization, for a business to be profitable or to do well is to ensure that their employees do well. And you don't do that just by teaching them or giving them mild reviews at the end of a year, 12 or 13 month cycle. You do that by sitting with them and walking through them. So just as I'm going to teach my daughter how to drive by sitting through it, and first we'll stop at stop signs and we'll talk about it, and then we'll hopefully stop at more stop signs and stoplights and left turns and right turns. That's the way that Bob's learning is school.
Okay, next slide, please. Okay, Bill. All right, so now it's time to dig into the meat of it. What exactly is this Learn Together thing? Learn Together is what we call next generation education. So it's a professional learning development management system. Let's unpack that a little bit. Okay, Bill, please. Learn Together is next generation. Next generation is all the things that we're doing all around ourselves all the time in other places that are now making it into education. Gamified, flipped, meaning you learn at home and you perform in class. Not you learn in class and perform at home. Automated, which means the burden on the instructor for doing bulk evaluations is taken off them so that they can focus on student interaction. It's scaffolded, it's social, meaning that the training wheels are slowly taken off of you until you reach expertise. Bill, please. What does it mean for it to be a professional learning development management system? We hope that we end up being LinkedIn meeting Khan Academy, and educational software like Canvas becomes completely irrelevant to us. Because we're not really trying to make that first transition. This is a very important point. Canvas, I have nothing against Canvas, which is the main learning system we use in the University of Washington or Blackboard or any other academic system, but they're first generation. They're immigrants. They're trying to get you off of your stand-up classroom performance and onto something up there in the cloud. What we're doing is going way beyond that, taking that for granted that you're going to be in the cloud, and now making the cloud work for you, making it so that it does the things you need to do in order to make sure that people learn. So next, please. Okay, who is this thing for? We designed it for department leaders who care about advancement of their employees, and Bill, please. ensure that training dollars have a clear ROI. This is from the mouth of Mark. Mark is an amazing leader in an amazing company. Costco really is like the Ben and Jerry's of the 21st century, where Ben and Jerry's pioneered social methods inside their organization to do good inside as well as doing good outside. Costco does that as well. And when I said that in a meeting at Costco, they said, yeah, we don't really like to talk about that. There's the contrast with Ben and Jerry. They love to talk about it. Costco actually does it. So if you're a department leader like Mark, who really cares about his employees and has this problem, I got some of them up here that are really awesome at what they do, but I got a lot of them coming in who aren't so awesome at what they do. How do I leverage those people? We used to call that the knowledge management problem, right? Years ago, we called it knowledge management. We invented this whole discipline of knowledge management to get the magic out of someone's head and put it into someone else's head. Knowledge management fails for a whole lot of reasons, but we're taking another run at that idea that your organization is a social network of people who need to talk to each other and who need to teach each other and just need the infrastructure to be able to make that organized. So we're targeting 500 to 500 staff of similar professions. Really critical to our understanding is that everybody in this game, and it's kind of a game, everybody in this game is in it together and they're in it for the same reasons. They're all the same kind of professional. So two people can talk to each other about the same stuff. Care advancement employees, it says exactly what you need to do to advance your career. You'll see how it does that in a moment. And it trains directly on work products and methods for your department, the things that your professionals actually have to do. So the idea of ROI is built right in. As opposed to sending them out to some conference or some training session and wondering what happened, you can say 10 more people this week know how to do this thing that I think is very important. Next, please. Okay, so that's the concept. Here's the system, just a little bit of background. I've been doing learning systems for 10 plus years. There's a number of my former students in here that have put up with my learning systems over the years. But believe me, they're getting better every day. 10 years ago, it was kind of hard to build something that was an online system, as Jeff knows. Today, it's a little bit easier. So this is an old one that I did, and if you've been in one of my classes, like a lot of students in this room have, you're seeing something like that. This is the new one. The one on the right here is something I've developed over the last few years to teach to freshmen and sophomores just coming into the university. It relies strongly on the gamification metaphor because that's the language that they speak. So at some time in the future, we can dive into this one. This is about as good as I've gotten academically. But what I want to say is that what you're going to see next really is dependent on a tremendous amount of energy put into these things over time. Okay, here's LearnTogether. Here's our sort of home screen for a learner. LearnTogether is gamified, and Mike said most of it. Gamified really is about counting up, not counting down, giving people multiple chances to get something right. In life, isn't that how it works? The first time you drive, you suck. So that's a good thing that we're not testing you on the very first time you drive. You drive and you drive and you drive and you drive until you get good enough. Our base system is exactly the same idea. You have personal agency. Another thing that we took out of games that's really important. You decide when you're going to go into one of these things. Something I learned in my classes a long time ago is really huge here. When I say to my students, Colin or somebody else, you have to do this by this date. Immediately say, no. Right? It's human nature. But when I say to Colin, you don't get to do this until you do this and that. Now all of a sudden it's like, what do you mean I don't get to do it? Right? You guys have kids, right? Same thing. All right, so that's personal agency. And that's really important to people. They really depend on personal agency for motivation. Then we have a lot of the sort of milieu of gaming. Things like levels, where you're measured at, you got to a certain level of attainment. Things like challenges, where you have to get over specific hurdles, and you build up to that hurdle, then you get over that hurdle and you level up. That's a gaming thing. That's really motivating, and that's why they do it. So to me, most of what I get out of gamification is this idea of using people's natural motivations to get them to do whatever. In most cases, it's cheap thumbs, right? In this case, it's learn the work product of the other ones, other people in your organization. Okay, we have the idea of unlocking, which is a game you don't get to do it. So the game board you see here, or we call it the learning canvas, you'll see across the top that there are job titles there. And inside the job titles, there are various skills that you have to accomplish at those levels in order to qualify for this job title. Mark has generously agreed that the people in his department will qualify for their jobs by filling out this learning canvas, doing all the learning that's important. And of course, why wouldn't he? Because he's the one who got to say what all the skills were, or he and Mia and Troy and Lisa about to say what the skills are that you need in order to do that job. So it's obvious that once you have those skills, you should be able to do that job. And if they're not the skills you need to do your job, they ain't on here. And if they are on here, it's because we feel they're really important for you to do. Okay, learn together is social. Learn together. The learning part is all about what we've just been talking about, the pedagogy of how do you make people learn, how do you get them engaged. But the social thing is equally important. For Mark to be able to look at the social network diagram of his project manager and say, who's been talking to who? Who are my stars? Who are my outliers? The people who really have no connections to the rest of the project. I gotta take care of them. Who's rising? Whose ideas and work product is spreading to the rest of the organization? That's the idea of the social network from the leader perspective. But how about from the perspective of a young entering project manager who wants to make his or her way through Costco? Now it's all about who do I get to talk to? Who do I get to work with? Who do I get to know that can teach me, that can train me, that can mentor me? And that's going to take us to the next idea, which is the idea of learners and mentors. The general, usual idea of a mentor is somebody who takes you out to lunch, buys you coffee, and gives you kind of career advice. That's kind of what I've had as mentors. You might do that all the time. That's the general idea of mentor. We take it in a very different direction. We say that Troy is going to help Lisa get from level 1 to level 2 on running a meeting. That's the skill, running a meeting. Lisa wants to know how to do it. She does it very well already. Troy knows how to do it. Troy's going to mentor her for that very small little thing. In other words, you have a ton of mentors. You have a lot of mentors, and those interactions are short. If you'd like to continue on with that mentor and go out for coffee and all that, that's great. But the point is, someone who knows is going to help you, who's going to sort of midwife you through that transition from level 1 to level 2. That's the idea of a learner, a builder. All right, so one at a time. So this is how it works. Mentors, the people who know, give us their best work product. And they literally give us what they got. A great plan for this, a great document for that, some idea of what a really good interpersonal interaction is. And by the way, this isn't only about those hard skills. It's also critically about the soft skills, the interpersonal. So we turn that into learning material. And we build it out into a screen that looks like this, and I'll give you a little demo of the screen in a little bit. Next, please. Learners consume that best work product to advance. That's how they learn, by learning from your Chris. Chris is awesome at something. He's going to put his awesomeness into our application, and other people are going to study his awesomeness so that they can be as awesome as Chris. Then finally, the same person, Chris, in one context is a mentor because he knows this stuff really well, and in another context he's a learner because he needs to know something else very well. Skills are unevenly distributed in the organization, and we leverage that to say that in the same instant you could be learning from one and mentoring to another. And remember, these relationships are small and continually turn over and tend to coalesce your group of people into a fighting force, into a coherent group of people who all are pulling in the same direction. Okay, we talked about the learner and the mentor. The learner consumes materials from the mentor certifies that person for a level up in a very small place. Now we have a leader. What does the leader want to do? What are my expectations? Mark would love to be able to say, I really want all these people to learn all these things, and the tool he has right now is go to Chicago for Boot Up. You come back and maybe we hope he's learned these things. We want to give him tools to set expectations, find out who the stars are, find who needs help. All the things that I talked about before. But one really big one, and this is where I really acknowledge management completely. We want to make it not so that we capture this static thing that we do today, but so that we start off an evolving system, and as innovations happen in the staff, as new methods come up, as new techniques come up, they naturally come into the system and move the entire practice forward. So it's not only trying to get people from kindergarten to grade 12, it's trying to evolve the entire nature of what we do as our work. Learn Together is work product based. I think I've talked a lot about this before. The learning is organized by jobs. Notice we have a job there and exactly what it takes to get to that job. I think I'm running a little shy, so Learn Together is self-paced, really critical. You choose when to move forward or when to pause. Nobody is forced to learn together. Our job is to pull them in and have them understand what reasons they have for interacting with the other people on staff. We believe there are many. You choose your mentors. You choose In any skill, there are various styles you can choose from. So it's not just the sort of the party line, and everybody has to go to the party line. There's lots of ways to vary and say that one person has this style of doing it, another person has a completely other style of doing it. Who do you want to study in? Whose style do you want to study? You choose